So the Haunting in Connecticut asks you, what if the only explanation for what you saw was unbelievable? And I would like to think that explanation is the audacity of this fucking landlord. Let me explain. This is 2009's Haunting in Connecticut, starring who you might not know, and kind of looks like the mom from the Goldbergs, and who I kind of sort of thought it was, but I knew it wasn't, but I couldn't place my finger on where it was. She's Helen from the original Candyman. Anyway, first things first, what you need to know about A Haunting in Connecticut is that according to the movie, it's based on a true story. However, people are very divisive about that. Now, from what the family says, it's a real thing. It actually happened. They've been on multiple ghost hunting shows about it. And obviously their tale was made into a movie. However, there's this whole thing about the guy who wrote the book based on the experience was told by Ed and Lorraine Warren to make something up. Now, whether or not it's true, that's entirely up to you. I'm just saying it says based on a true story at the top and nobody can confirm nor deny. But let's get into it. So it's the 1980s and Helen's oldest son has cancer, but I guess in the 80s chemo radiation treatment is still kind of like in a clinical trial, but he's one of the patients. And she's having to drive back and forth like 4 hours for him to get treatment, and they're kind of short on money, so it's getting to be too expensive for her to drive back and forth. Plus, it's putting a lot of toll on his body, and it gets to be too much. So she starts looking around for like a house to rent while he's in the middle of treatment. And they're a family of 6, so they need like a big house. Well, she goes to see one house, and she tells her husband, it was big enough, but it's just not for us. But doesn't really give any specifications as to why. Until they're in the middle of driving home, and the oldest son, his name is Matt, he's just miserable. He is put for the day. So she turns back around to go to the house. And then the next day, her husband is shown up with like a tiny U-Haul and crammed like 4 kids onto a bench seat. Like, that man was ready to get in there. But also, if they're just renting, he packed some really weird shit like an empty suitcase. But I digress, moving on. So Matt wants to live in the basement because it has a private bathroom. It's really cold and, he can do his stuff by himself. Well, there's like these double doors in the basement with like glass on them, but you can't see on the other side. And he keeps having these nightmares about it. And then he starts seeing things like dead people. Well, one day they finally get the door unlocked, and surprise, the house was a funeral home in the 20s, which apparently the mom knew about, and apparently that was the reason why she said it wasn't for them, but she wasn't also going to tell anybody. But she really sold it because she came down there and she's like, ooh, I wonder what these go to, and she's got like her hands around her eyes trying to see in the other side, knowing full and damn well this place used to be a funeral home. Also, she found fucking pictures in there that's like the post-mortem ones from the 20s where you pose with your dead, like, loved one. And she just threw them away, which wouldn't be such a big deal if it weren't for the fact they're renting the house. She doesn't own them. Those are the owners. But also whatever. And then, all the scary stuff starts happening. And then the kids start doing research. And come to find out, the mortician was practicing necromancy. He had a little boy, used the little boy as a medium, would bring people over here so that he could hear spirits and tell them where jewels are buried. But apparently when you surround yourself with dead bodies, it can make like the signal stronger. And then ectoplasm would come out so that people could see it. Why you needed ectoplasm, I don't know. It didn't show you anything. It was just like this blob of shit that would come out. And apparently ectoplasm burns like lava because it shot everywhere, hit people in the face, and killed a bunch of people. But anyways, yeah, apparently surrounding yourselves with dead bodies amplifies the communication. So like they would bury the dead people, go back and dig them up later, and then like carve etchings and stuff into them and steal their eyelid. Which I'm still a little confused about why you need to steal their eyelids, because the guy who I thought was Chris Maloney, and who in fact was not Chris Maloney, said it was to make them invisible, except they're ghosts, so they're already invisible. But anyways, all the scary stuff starts happening, like the electrical outlets are like sparking without anything in them, which could be why your light bill is so high, and then the drunk dad was like bitching about it and stealing all the light bulbs, when really it might be a ghost that's causing your electric bill. But anyways, Matt keeps seeing Jonah's ghost and thinks that Jonah's causing all the chaos, but it turns out that Jonah's soul is staying there because he's trying to lead all the dead body ghosts into the light, or something to that effect. But anyway, Matt takes an axe and like pulls out all the mummified bodies from the wall and lights the house on fire, and him and his mom get out, and he gets all better. The end. Now let's move on to the questions, comments, and concerns, and why I think this man was a slumlord. So presumably, the house was built before the 1920s. We can presumably say the house was built before 1920 because all the scary stuff where they were like stealing bodies and shit were happening in the 1920s. Which means if all of this was going on in the 1980s, this house is at least 60 years old. Now, I will give it to them. If they embalmed the bodies and they did all the mummifications and shit, they might be able to hide the smell. But do you mean to tell me in 60 years in a building that you intended to rent out to people, not once did you have to go into the walls to update the electricity, the plumbing? We're in Connecticut. You didn't have like one busted pipe any winter for 60 years. We didn't have to go in the walls one time for like insulation. Nobody accidentally put like a hole in a wall trying to move a piece of furniture, replacing a window. Or like, to maybe build up some curb appeal, we could have gone into the basement and started removing all the damn funeral home equipment. Hi, I'd like to rent this to you. Like, maybe he can't get... Do you mean to tell me that nobody tried to force that door open at any point? Didn't try to take it off the hinges? Go ahead and break the window just to see what's on the other side? Could have been gold bars. Hell, you could have put some plywood up on, like, the front side so nobody ever saw them. But I guess we're okay just leaving antique fucking embalming equipment down there. Would that be a liability? Hi, let me leave all this dangerous shit in a house I'm renting to you. Where does that fall? If then you have a whole dumbwaiter in the house that leads directly into the crematorium. Directly. In a house you are renting to with small children. On top of a house that we now presumably have to believe that has not had any, like, code updates. So case in point, Slumlord. Now, did I like this movie? For the most part. It was a lot more fun in 2009 when the lights are all out and you're not expecting all the spoopies. It's like the first time you watch Insidious as opposed to like the 10th time you watched Insidious, provided you never saw The Phantom Menace before you saw Insidious. I guess I'll give it like a 7 out of 10 because it's got the good jump scares, but you can't think too hard about it. 7 out of 10. Okay, bye. To the window! To the wall! To the wall! Till the corpses drop out of the wall. Oh, eyelids, eyelids, eyelids. Oh, eyelids, eyelids, eyelids.